argument, I think there is not much difference. In fact, in Parliament, I think there are occasions where, as I said, intelligent question coming from him and his colleague and my colleagues, we entertain. I think we do get into, though very rarely, we do get into some good and interesting gymnastic, or intellectual gymnastic. Now, my message today is basically two things, or rather one big theme, that is making full use of this proclamation that the government wants to amend Section 15 to allow students to be members of political parties, to make full use of that proclamation or announcement to discuss all related issues on two areas, or in two areas. Number one, towards a more progressive democratic participation, or new politics, or political transformation, or reform, or what have you. And number two, to discuss issues pertaining to making our university work in the right way. I take it in that spirit. Otherwise, we don't even have to come here to discuss. Because we will end up, YP Zul talking about one thing and I'm going to talk about another thing. Now, first, let me start by saying that this is the first time that the government has finally recognized that the student has rights to politics. I think there is a radical change from being paranoid and allergic to students' involvement in politics to accepting and recognizing that students has rights to politics. And further than that, there is, I think, quite a clear definition on the government side that the right is defined as allowing students to become a member of a political party. Though there is a hiccup towards the end of it, because there is also this statement saying that partisan politics are not allowed on campus. But that, to my mind, remains to be seen as to how do we go about it. On the appealing of the UKM4, myself, KJ, and Gan Peng Siu on the record made a public statement together with UKM4 urging the government to not appeal, so that the government do not appeal on the UKM4 on the same reason given by the Dr. Zul. So salah sikit. But I suppose there is the proof that we are both sometimes non-partisan. I believe we are bipartisan, because we serve no purpose. Because on the one side you say you want to repeal or you want to amend the AUKU, but on the other hand you want to appeal on UKM4 case. For the record, the three of us and others are still working, perhaps behind closed doors, trying to convince the government not to. And we hope the government will not. Now, coming back to the whole piece of legislation, there are three major school of thoughts when it comes to AUKU. Number one, that the AUKU is okay, the AUKU is perhaps even good for universities or for students. This is, of course, the opinion of majority of people in UMNO and Barisan Nasional. For a long time, they hold to this position. But some of them changed their position because the president of UMNO and Barisan Nasional and the Prime Minister has made the announcement to delete or to amend section 15. So that's a good sign, no problem. The second school of thought is to amend section 15 and other related sections in AUKU and related acts like Akta RPTS, Akta 173 and Akta 174, because AUKU governs the public universities, the Private Higher Education Act 1996 govern the private universities and university colleges. And then you have Akta Universiti Teknologi Mara, and then you have Akta Institusi Pendidikan Disiplin. Now the last two, which is Akta 173 and Akta 174, governs UiTM and polytechnics and college programs and the other institutions under the auspices of the Ministry of Higher Education. So to be consistent, if we were to amend Section 15 of AUKU, we must also amend Section 40, if I'm not mistaken, or Section 47 of the Private Higher Education Institution Act and the relevant or related sections in Act 173 and Act 174. Now, where do we go from here? Now, my position is we must ensure the process, or rather the amendment to Section 15 is made in the most comprehensive and progressive manner. And we must avoid the process being hijacked or being derailed to the extent that there will be amendments, but the amendments become restrictive and regressive. I'll give you an example. We can amend Section 15, but make it progressive. For instance, by saying, there are two ways of amending it. Number one is by putting in new words to Section 15 to the effect that students are allowed to be a member of a political party, or just delete the whole thing, therefore you are silenced, therefore students have their right. That's another way of doing it. That would be quite progressive. It will become regressive the moment you add in the don'ts. Like for instance, this cannot, that cannot, those cannot. Then it will become regressive, it will become restrictive. I'll give an example. The Prime Minister said no partisan politics on campus. What do you mean by not allowing partisan politics on campus? Do you mean you cannot open a political party's branch? Do you mean you cannot allow a student to wear a political party's badge? Do you mean UMNO car, a car with UMNO emblem and a car with PAS emblem cannot go into campus because that's party politics? Do you mean you cannot hold a forum where Dzulkefly and Saifuddin are the panelists? Those are also including me. Not partisan. Now, what do you mean? What do you mean? So these are the don'ts that I'm trying to avoid as far as the process is concerned. It is going to be regressive the moment and restrictive the moment you have so many words into it. And then it will become like PA 2011. Yeah. My take on PA 2011 is that it is again a very radical change from a government that was paranoid and allergic to peaceful assembly to a government that recognized peaceful assembly as part and parcel of democracy. But some of the sections within PA 2011 make it even more restrictive and make it even more regressive, and that's most unfortunate. Many of us, I think many of us were not very happy, and we were hoping it will be amended. So what do I do then as a member of the government? Well, the least that I can do is to avoid the process of amending Section 15 to be derailed or to be hijacked to the extent that the amendment takes place, but it becomes regressive and it becomes restrictive. Now, the other thing, which is even more important than that section, is to make full use of this discussion, this debate, this process to discuss issues on political transformation, on the empowerment of the student movement, I have received some memorandum from SMM and others. There is this need for us to review student elections on campus. I am of the opinion that students should be allowed to hold their own elections on campus. But prior to that, there is this whole discussion about, is MPP a student body or is MPP is not a student body? My take from those days has always been MPP is not a student body. A student body is formed by students. MPP is formed by the university, so it is not a student body. So you must first allow students to form a student body, like the old AUKU way. Something that I missed because when I was a student activist in UM, I don't have the AUKU, I have the MPP. And it is not a student body, as defined by student movement, as we understand it. So those are issues that require a lot of thoughts, that require a lot of thinking. And of course, coupled to that, will be issues on university autonomy, on academic freedom. YP talk about university autonomy from the government. But there is also the other way of looking at university autonomy. You must remember, there are private universities. Universities must also be autonomous from the business sector. My favorite example is always quoting two literatures from the US. Firstly is from Darik, the former president of Harvard University, who wrote a book entitled Universities in the Marketplace. And he was lamenting the problems faced by universities because universities somehow, to a certain extent, and this is because of the funding coming from the industries to promote and to support research and development projects on universities or in universities, that to a certain extent, sometimes universities become subservient to the industry. And he was saying university must take care of itself so that they do not become subservient to the business or to the industry. There is autonomy from the industry, even though you are receiving funding from the industry, especially or in particular for R&D purposes. The second is the book written by Henry Giroux. The title of the book is Universities in Chains, CHAINS. Referring to American universities becoming yes men to the military in particular, because they have to do research for the military on government instruction. Well, if we look at the history of many American universities, including top-notch universities, in particular the time after the Second World War or during the Second World War, lots of university R&D were purely military in nature, and this was, of course, to strengthen and further strengthen the American hegemony in as far as world politics is concerned. So there is that kind of autonomy that we have to, and of course, academic freedom and so on and so forth. We should, if I can just continue from YP Zul on academic, the products, or rather the main aim or the main goal of university. I think we should all be reminded by Professor Saifuddin. Among others, he said that the main aim of the university education is not to nurture good workers, but rather to nurture good men. That was his word. But I think to be more gender sensitive, perhaps, to be gender, politicians from the end don't speak very loud. So not like from the opposition. If I were to paraphrase Saifuddin, then the purpose or the main aim of a university is not to nurture good workers, but rather good insan yang baik, dan bukan sahaja pekerja yang baik.